Okay. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us here to understand what is asset tracing in the context of divorce cases and how it can be essential when preparing for a divorce. I'm very delighted today to have Martin Dubby and Jamie Butter from Harrod Associates to speak with us today. My name is Joanna Lane, and I will be your host today, and I will be taking down your questions at the end of the webinar. So I'll hand the stage over to Martin and Jamie to start the session. Gentlemen, please.
Thank you, Joanna, and good afternoon to you, and good morning if you're in London. I'm Martin Dubby. I'm the Managing Director of Harrod Associates, and my colleague Jamie Butter is here with me. In talking about asset tracing in divorce cases, I think it'd be useful to set some parameters at the start of this presentation in terms of, firstly, when I talk about different scenarios and different cases, I may talk he or she. It's just our experience that most of the cases that we talk about are she's, usually the wife separating from the husband that we represent. So I will probably mostly orientate it towards the wife, but that is not always the case. So that's the first parameter I'd make. The second thing is we abide by the law of the jurisdiction that we operate in. So we are a global company, we operate around the world, but we always respect the jurisdiction of the country that we're working in or for. And what that means is that as we do this presentation, what I'm going to do is draw out learning experiences that we've had from doing investigations across the globe. And sometimes they're relevant to your country, sometimes they're not, but I think they're all useful learning points as we move forward through this presentation. I will be discussing some case examples during this presentation, but what I should say is these are all spent cases. These are all and they're a useful way to highlight different ways that we investigate and different circumstances and tactics. So even so, I'd still ask you to respect the confidential nature of those, but I won't be giving anything away that will enable you to be overly concerned. So if I do mention a case example, it is purely an old case. So let's talk about Harrod Associates, our company itself. We're a company of investigators, predominantly ex-government investigators, but with some banking staff employed as well. And we have a global reach as investigators across the globe in terms of the ability to conduct investigations. Just this year, we've conducted investigations in over 80 different countries. Now, that's great, but in addition to that, what makes us really unique is the ability to use specialist cyber investigation techniques that are proprietary to our company to overlay the work we're doing and look for more snippets of information, more leads into where assets may be hidden. And I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. So, as I say, we have investigators with over 30 years of experience, and we have many of those investigating complex asset tracing cases to do with divorces. So you're in safe hands, as it were. Let's look at some of the other experiences the company has, and probably our most high-profile work is in the area of sport investigation. Maybe not directly relevant to you at the moment. Let's look at it anyway. We have been involved as the lead investigators for the investigation of cheating Olympic Games involving the Russian state. I'm sure many of you will have been familiar with that news, and we also do a lot of sport investigation work. I say is predominantly ex-law enforcement. For myself, I was the former head of intelligence for the Serious Organised Crime Agency International Crime Agency. And the relevance of that is that the lessons we applied in chasing the assets of bad guys, fraudsters, drug traffickers, you name it, we apply those same lessons learned to the techniques we use for investigating in divorce cases. And I guess the most important news for when we're looking at this whole question of asset tracing is that in the past few years, we've identified in excess of $1 billion worth of hidden assets around the world, hidden in different jurisdictions, hidden in different ways. So that's good news from the hidden assets perspective. Now, this might look a rather complex slide, but in fact, it's bringing together now all the different aspects of what we do. You see on one side, you've got the investigator with access to our world-leading proprietary software known as Seeker and Sentinel. And these are really our cyber tools that enable us to legally go out and collect information in a way that we can globally, that we can in a way that's language agnostic, so it doesn't matter what language we're working in, we can still collect. And we're very happy that we can use this in admissible evidence in courts around the world. So we're bringing all that together the actual question of tracing in specific instances, in the case of divorce cases, etc. So my first point here is what is asset tracing? And in the context of divorce cases, it's the assessment of wealth, an analysis of what is on the surface, what is known, and what is hidden. Now, what do I mean by that? Quite often at the start of divorce cases, we find that the partner that's our client will come to us and will know of obvious stuff, surface assets. They know they have a joint bank account. They know that there are various properties and things like that. Those are surface assets, which are important to collect and collate as part of our analysis of the entire entitlement, the entire nature of the estate. And then there are what I call known assets. So this might not be knowledge, and this might not be direct knowledge of the person that's your client, but quite often if you sit down there and we gently just go through the circumstances of the case with them, recognizing that they're in a very sensitive and vulnerable position, and it's just go over things like, okay, so your partner was in, there must be things like pensions and potentially company shareholdings and things like that would be relevant to understanding the asset base of the person we're dealing with. So that is what I call known assets. They're known about, but perhaps not the detail. And again, it's important to draw information out. And then we get on to the final subject here, which is hidden assets. So the hidden assets are what has been deliberately hidden from the partner, maybe just not discussed with the partner. There's absolutely no clue. In some cases, we have it where there's absolutely a deliberate route to hide assets. And that is the hidden assets, which it becomes, if you like, the more complex part of what we're trying to do here, which is to identify the full available wealth of the person that we're getting divorced from. The other important point I'd make here, it's the beginning rather than the end of the case. Sometimes it's a temptation to bring in investigators at the end of the case, or in the UK, we have a situation called Form E, and you may have similar where you are in different jurisdictions. But in Form E, the other parties, all parties are required to make a declaration of their known wealth. And it's often by this stage of the case that people have had opportunity to hide assets, to smokescreen attention away from them, etc. And what we say, it's too late. You know, do the investigation at the beginning. And as I'll explain as we go through this presentation, it helps develop a financial strategy for you as lawyers to help you understand which direction of travel you should be going in, what questions you should be asking of the other side, and ultimately leveraging the best deal possible for your client. And we do that, we go out and, as I say, we gather that by using a mix of unique cyber tools with our investigative experiences and connections around the globe. Now, you can see a couple of examples below on this slide where we've been looking at allow snippets of information about them, properties they own around the world, formal assets they might have, even shareholdings, business interests, and that sort of thing, to really get a strong understanding and evaluation of what that person does or what that person holds. So often I get asked, what are the typical ways in which a partner can attempt to hide their wealth? I mean, if you're consulting with your client and at an early stage you're trying to establish from them exactly what they know, etc., it's quite possible that the partner on the other side is trying to hide their wealth. And what I've done here is drawn up a top 5, if you like, of learning points on our experiences where we've come across people who are attempting to hide their wealth. Now, my first question is with the other side, how long have they known about this potential for divorce? Is it a surprise to them? Or did they bring on the action where they've been planning for a year or so that they are going to get divorced, so therefore they're going to be in a much better position to have hidden assets and to smokescreen what looks like a good deal to your client when in fact they've hidden a load of financial information away from you? They're much better prepared. Or is this a surprise to them? That's got to be the evaluation. This is why I highlight that it's really important to start the investigation at the beginning of the case and not wait till later on to establish if there are assets out there. Once the element of surprise has been taken away, then people do start thinking towards get rid of assets. How can I lower my liability here? So you need to evaluate just how long has the other side been aware that a divorce is on the table, and could they have taken steps to evade or hide their assets? Quite often we find that, you know, the most easiest way is to devalue their business interests, to perhaps push shares off to relatives, close associates, that sort of thing, or make out that the company is not worth quite what you think it is. And of course, if you've been together with your partner in many jurisdictions in the world, you'll be entitled to a share of that business. So if they can downplay the value of that business, well, that's less money that we're going to be sharing with you. And in a similar way, I think the next point is very similar, and I guess it is, but their wealth is played down. They've never really shared with your client just how wealthy they are. Your client may have been used to a good life, but that's been it. Never really fully aware of the extent of the full wealth that's available to them. And so what we do is a really important part in the first part of any investigation is to meet with your client online, if necessary, of course, with you and your client, and just gently probe what are the signs of this wealth. A good example is regular trips to the same location. Does your partner take regular trips for whatever? It might be covered as a business trip or whatever. But we always say if someone's going on there on a regular basis, the question's got to be why? Why are you going there? You might say it's a business trip, but actually, are there property assets hidden there? And this sort of thing. Is there a sort of nest egg being built in the location of the regular trip? For British nationals, a telltale sign are regular trips to Florida and to Spain. These are two key points where people look to have investigators. It always gives us a good dotted around the world. Again, each jurisdiction is different, and we work with you to help understand where those regular trips might go. Then I guess attempts to hide wealth. A lot depends on the occupation of the partner and what their experience is inside. Obviously, if you're married to an accountant, you might have more difficulty in digging out exactly what they've got because their wealth. We recently had a case involving a pensions investment advisor, and of course, on the surface of it, you know, we have the surface and known assets, pension, company shares, but he's a pension investment advisor. So what had happened was he'd been investing in the same stuff, if you like, that his pension company was doing. He'd been personally investing in that. So he had personal experience of that. And so that's what I'm saying, looking at the person's occupation. Are they capable? Do they fully understand how to go about hiding assets? Again, another question that we get asked is, are asset investigations invasive? Well, let's look at this first chunk of points. The thing I'd say to you is our investigations will be legal wherever they are in the world. And here's the important point, which I guess goes to answering, it will be covert. So what we need to do, and I make this point in the next bullet, is it surprise. What we need to do is understand exactly the extent of the wealth without alerting the side that we're doing that. And the importance of that is that once they know that someone's digging into that wealth, they may try hiding it. The sooner we act, the better. It will create information and leverage. So, for example, we are always going to come back and find out more information about the partner's wealth than was originally known. This goes back to the point of looking at surface, known, and hidden assets. We can expand and enhance to provide you with a bigger picture of exactly what the extent of wealth is. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it creates leverage. It creates you negotiating capabilities. Documentation, pension schemes, work employment contracts, and that sort of thing you can be asking for at an early stage rather than to you. It helps your financial strategy. The private area to find out information. We're harvesting simply what is available to us in that open data, but legally available information arena. So there's no hacking.
I think Martin's
bank.
I think Martin's connection is going in and out. So just while he adjusts that, I'll just take over for the moment. As Martin reiterated, the biggest question we have here is always, in terms of the divorcee, that there's a huge amount of concern that this will be discovered by the husband in some sort of form or manner, in which we are incredibly insistent from the moment to the end of completion of the report and the engagement, that at no point will the husband ever, if we are to make it gender specific, as Martin said at the front end of the conversation, that will be any form of suspicion that this is being investigated on that particular person. The last thing that we want to do is to extend what is already an incredibly emotional time for the individual that's approached us. And as Martin said previously, we are harvesting rather than hacking or scraping any form of personal data. One quick thing I'll say as well, particularly from the UK's perspective, is that we're very, very conscious as well of the Immerman case rulings, and we are certainly not in a position to encourage clients to step over the mark, particularly here in the UK, of disadvantaging the case for you as the lawyers or the divorce coaches or anyone else associated with the client, of what we would call on an unofficial basis the Miss Marple effect, which is to provide us any form of documentation or data that would put the case in jeopardy due to the fact of the Immerman case ruling, where we would have to obviously declare that to the lawyer, who then in turn would have to declare that to the other side, which unfortunately takes a huge amount of time, effort, and also money on behalf of the client. So if we go on to the next slide, Martin, are you back there? Maybe not. So I'll continue with this. So as Martin said from the beginning, the great advantage of engaging an entity such as ourselves is that this really does drive the financial strategy of a divorce case. So we are able to not only go through a huge amount of information, technically what a human could do over 1 million man hours, we can do into a millionth of a second, given the cyber technology that Martin talked about at the beginning of the conversation, which really enables us to punch way above our weights in terms of being able to provide strategy from day one with regards to being able to provide corporate structure, intelligence, as I said, any form of information that would normally be shooting into the dark and be incredibly restrictive in terms of being able to gain access to. We are able to take this report and with the clients brief the lawyers and be able to dictate financial strategy from day one. That is vital for the success, not only for the case, but also for client satisfaction. Now, we are very clear as well that because there is an emotional attachment to the particular case in form of divorce cases, we're very conscious of that. What we are very, very clear is that we do not want to provide any form of non-important information or to overinflate information just because that would satisfy the needs of the client. We are very clear of how we engage, and we're very clear from day one with the client that there is a premium in dealing with asset tracers such as ourselves, because even if anything is not found for a relatively short amount of time and financial commitments, they are able to, going forward, be satisfied that their partner hasn't or had never hidden commercial or personal assets away from that partner, of which will keep them up at night in the years post the divorce. So we're very clear again from day one with engaging with clients that we are not going to have a magic wand and be able to overpromise the fact that we have been successful in the past of identifying assets. This is very bespoke to that particular case, and we're very, very clear from day one that that could lead to nothing. But in fact, just by pursuing that exercise, the premium is an emotional satisfaction on their part that they've done everything possible to drive strategy from day one, and secondly, exclude any sort of question marks surrounding their partner's potential undisclosed wealth, shall we say. So, Martin, are you back online?
Yeah,
I think we're still having difficulty with the line. Apologies for that. So, just to conclude, because I know we're coming up to the 25 minutes cut-off point, is that we very much encourage our relationships that we have with lawyers is certainly to pick up the phone with us to question or ask us any form of information that might be helpful to their particular case. And we're more than happy to have a sit down with that client to explain in greater detail not only our capabilities, but also the parameters of how we engage. Because obviously from the outside in, it's quite a complex process with on the surface a lot of smoke and mirrors. And we've been very, very clear within the commercial intelligence world that we operate in, that we very much want to stand by the fact that we are a clear, admissible platform that wants to drive strategy and help the client ultimately, and certainly not be one of these organizations that provide information in brown paper bags that might be interesting in suspicions that the client may have, but has no relevance to the case. We want to strip away all of the emotion associated with that divorce, which 9 out of 10 times is traumatic the time they are engaging with us. Stripping that away and very much in layman's terms, just driving strategy and getting what is the best scenario and best outcome for that client, particularly in the financial sense. So driving strategy, admissible, language agnostic. We're global in our outreach, and as Martin clearly said from the outset, we are bespoke to the environment and the country in question. There's very little countries that we haven't operated in, and we're very mindful of the local legality restrictions in the environments that we operate. And on that, Joanna, I think it would be best if we opened up to questions, if there were any.
Yes. Thank you, thank you, Jamie.
Hopefully, I can join in. I don't know if you're hearing that, Jamie. You did a great job, so hopefully that worked well for everyone. We'd be happy to take your questions.
Yes, so if you can see on the right side of the screen, you have a chat button. So if you have any questions, you can actually just type it there, and Jamie and Martin can actually answer them for you. So, and I think that what happens is after this session, each and every one of you will be receiving a replay of this webinar where you can actually share with your friends or colleagues, anyone that you can actually think of. And at the same time, both Martin and Jamie will be reaching out to you individually, to see if you will actually have a case or probably something that you would like to discuss. And then you can actually do it privately. So really have to thank Martin and Jamie for doing this. So I'm going to read out the first question. Is that how's the process like, and how long does it take?
That's a really good question, Joanna. Thank you. And in terms of what the process is, I would say talk to us as soon as you can. I was explaining this element of surprise, but also the need to act quickly before assets dissipated. And once they're dissipated, they're really difficult. They're much more difficult to track down. So first thing I'd say is please contact us, have a discussion. Once we agree the engagement, then what we'd like to do is sit down with you and your client and have a conversation about what we do know. We'll gently probe through the information that we already know, and that will be our starting point for developing that information. Typically, our investigations might last 10 to 15 days, certainly for an initial look and to give you an initial feel for what sort of wealth we're looking at, for looking at financial analysis of a subject, so that very quickly, very early on in the case, you understand just exactly how much wealth is involved here. I wanted to give an example earlier until I had the technical problems of a case where I talked about playing down your wealth, and we had a husband who treated his wife really like an absolute idiot. And all the time she raised questions about his wealth. She played it down. And actually what we were able to say within 10 to 15 days is, do you realise he's one of the richest guys in the UK? She had no idea. And he had shareholdings in probably a lot of major household names of companies in the UK, and she had no idea. And this is what I mean about play down wealth. So how long does an investigation last? Typically an initial report on the circumstances within 10 to 15 days, and then we can plan from there whether any further work is needed. So that would be a rough indication of timescale.
And also the uniqueness of the software and the systems that we have access to, which is hundreds of thousands of data points globally in a range of different languages, as Martin said. What that enables our investigators to do is to pursue avenues of which might come to an endpoint, but we've done it at a fraction of time comparative to a normal forensic accountant, for instance, that enables us to go back to the clients, their divorce coach, their lawyer, to ask additional questions to then enhance the information and let the systems and the investigators go through a different angle or area of, or avenue of pursuits. Again, we certainly want to have a two-way dialogue during the investigation, particularly if anything else comes up. But again, we're clear what is useful and what isn't useful. I think we work with wonderful people like Emma Heppenstall, who's a divorce lawyer coach who kindly spoke last week. And the amazing thing about having someone like that alongside is that we're able to convey to the client actually what is important for our investigators, whilst being sensitive still to the matter. So we're not really interested in terms of how badly he's been as a father to the kids, or if there's still a suspicion that he might be having an ongoing affair with the secretary. From our perspective, that secretary pursuit might be interesting if he's transferred assets over to her. But again, we want to strip away the emotion and very, very much look at what is the best strategy for the lawyers to be able to pursue this for the underlying client. Now, that involves us a debriefing as well. Once the written report, drafts, associated documents have been presented, we typically like to sit down then with the lawyer and present it, which the lawyer then can lead the questions once they've digested the report, with the knowledge that if it went all the way, Martin and the investigators could stand by and testify against the information which they provided.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, the next question is, if you find assets and jurisdictions between the country of origin, I'm assuming is offshore assets, how do you actually access and verify them within the country itself?
Okay, so if I gather that correctly, Joanna, the question is about how do we verify the assets in other jurisdictions, but also offshore facilities as well. Offshore is a really good question. Obviously, offshore very nature, whether in your cases legally, has been used to create or to expect a large element of privacy. And so therefore it's difficult to penetrate that mask, but not impossible. And what we do is we look for the reasons that offshore facility was set up. Why did someone set a company up? They didn't do it for no reason. Why did they do it? Did they do it to invest in property, invest in shares, buy a boat, all these sorts of things? So using our software, we're able to take that initial starting point and then, if you like, circle outwards, looking for the reason why that company is in existence. If we can find that reason, then that's the reason, that's the way we can evaluate the wealth of that particular offshore facility. What I should say, and let me manage expectations, is that, you know, it's not always a magic wand. We are not always going to be able to establish exactly that offshore facility set up. But the fact you know about it as part, if we find that offshore facility for you, that enables you to leverage in your negotiation questions about that offshore facility. If we find out an offshore company, an early part of the investigation, part of your strategy must be to say to the other side, we know about company X in British Virgin Islands. Please give us an explanation and please give us an assessment of wealth. Now, that's what I mean about, sort of having an initial overview that starts to set the pace of your financial strategy. We identify something that has a potential assets, you then take over. We can follow up with investigation of that based on the answers you get. But the point being is, you need to know about it early, you need to be getting in there quick. Good, John. Anything to add there, Jamie?
Yeah, I'd also say that the uniqueness of the guys as well is that because the vast majority have experience in ex-government, namely the National Crime Agency, a lot of Martin the Investigator's network extends globally to ex-government individuals that are prevalent and well embedded within the countries in question, but more importantly, know and be able to navigate the legal requirements of that particular jurisdiction. So it enables us, if we do need to go to a next stage, to verify beyond our capabilities, which is to go into local data sets or local areas of confirmation. We don't have to then, at great expense, put the expense onto the client by forcing them onto an aircraft and going to the jurisdiction in question. We can engage in those contacts that are a part of our wider network that we have worked with extensively for a great number of years, that are then able to do it on our behalf. But we're very clear that that is the last stage. We don't like individuals that are doing a flat fee for asset tracing and then come back after a couple of weeks and say, actually, we need the same amount of budget again because we need to go to Dubai. That's certainly not how we operate.
Okay, great. So,
thank you, Jonah.
Yeah. So there is another question. Can you look at computer forensic and tampering from the spouse?
Yeah, we have forensic.
Yeah, so
sorry, Martin.
No, you go ahead, Jamie. Go ahead.
We certainly have those capabilities in house. We certainly don't outsource. One thing again we are very, very clear on is that if we are looking at forensics of the clients in question, a joint computer or a joint tablet is also fair game. A computer in the other individual's sole use is not in play. So we're very clear that we will not go in and forensically look at a husband's computer that for the sake of additional information. Now, if we believe, and this is a typical concern that we have with some clients, particularly within the ultra high net worth space, is that if they believe there is either a keylogger on their phone, they have access to certain communication platforms, whether it be WhatsApp on a partner's laptop or desktop, then we have the ability to bring in our forensic teams to be able to demonstrate foul play. But that is certainly from a defensive point of view, and to add additional capabilities to the case, or from the legal perspective, of being able to demonstrate that there has been illegal use of gaining information on that particular client's mobile technology, whether it be tablet, mobile phone, or computer. But we certainly don't do it from an offensive point of view by crossing that line of gaining information off another partner's computer. The two individuals that we have that have those capabilities have a great range of experience in government. And that obviously extends also if with some of the ultra high network clients that we have, of even having the capability of what we call of technical security countermeasure exercises, TSCM sweeps, which is checking for bugs, listening devices of any form, or even covert cameras. But that is only in the extreme cases. Again, we're not in the business of wanting to upsell our services and leveraging off taking advantage of the fact that the client in question is in a vulnerable state. We'd much rather concentrate that on the investigation and to discount any form of suspicions, particularly on electronic intrusion. But there are cases when we do have to deploy those capabilities.
I think I would just add, every case is different and we treat every case on a bespoke basis. So if you had any concerns in this arena, please discuss them. There are ways of taking countermeasures of any expense, just different ways of acting, use and the computer. That mean you can avoid any concern about compromise or risk. So what I would say is, when we engage, please do ask, to come up with solutions. But as Jamie says, really our focus is on the investigation of the wealth. This is a critical issue for the future wealth and well-being of your client, that we do the best now to identify and help you with the financial strategy moving forward. Joanna.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Jamie. So I guess we have reached the end of the session. But before we go, as a closing, Martin, Jamie, is there, any last minute, end of session speech that you would like to share with us?
Thank you, General. I think I just want to reiterate the point of don't delay. It's worth investigating now as soon as you can, before the other side has a chance to hide or dissipate assets. Feel confident they've done that, then you've got a harder job on your hands. It's better to look now and develop your financial strategy now rather than wait.
So, I do actually have a question, Martin, because you have mentioned
yep.
To have Herald Associates to come in as early as possible. When would you say it's the best time to engage an asset tracing company like yours to come in?
Well, client in relation to the divorce case, you should be looking at almost straight away, getting a feel and getting an investigation running. In the UK, I've made sort of rather lengthy staged process where we have to wait for a Form E to come in, which is a declaration of the other side's assets, or in other words, what they will tell you that they think they can get away with. And if you've done an investigation prior to that, you're able to immediately evaluate or put them on notice that you know about stuff that they haven't put in their Form E. So I would always say do it early. An early stage of the case, if the divorce has been brought to the attention of the other side, immediately there's going to be a look at their wealth, etc., and they're going to be on alert and they're going to be looking to hide. So do it as soon as you can. Quite often we have clients where the partner doesn't know yet. This is a decision being made that sadly, and we accept the reality is sometimes the marriage can go no further. So if you have that element of surprise, do maximize advantage of that by coming to us for an investigation. We'll do it as an overview to start with. So we'll give you a phased approach so that, as Jamie says, we're not running around all over the world doing this, but we'll give you an immediate in-depth assessment of what we believe the wealth is of the other side.
And what I would just lastly say as well, before everyone goes, as well, is that if it was of an interest to one of your clients and you wanted verification of our success within this particular area, we're more than happy to talk about law firms based here in the UK and in the States and wider afar that regularly use us, that are happy for us to use them as points of reference if there was any question marks. But we very much encourage to reach out to both Martin or I, either on Singapore time or UK time. We're 24 hours a day, so don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Jamie. So we will be in touch, and your contact details are here. I'll probably just stay online for a while more, in case people would like to take down your contact details. But yes, we have reached the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.